Hi guys, long time no see. Welcome back. This is literally the first YouTube back since birth of Jude. And obviously I've wanted to do a birth story video to tell you everything about birth, what happened, timelines. I know you guys had so many questions, especially because I was planning on having home birth and things didn't go to plan. So we'll get right into it. So I feel like I went into birth, like I was really excited to give birth, which is so weird because I feel like people are like, you crazy? But I was really focused on making sure that mentally I was A, prepared, so I did a lot of research, but B, I really wanted it to be a positive experience. And I think a lot of the time people are like, oh, but like you haven't had a child yet, you don't know what's to come. And like I feel like so many people are absolutely terrified to give birth, and I think that's really sad because I almost feel like we've been like indoctrinated that women can't give birth like on their own, they can't give birth at home, they can't give birth like without being in a hospital, which I think is really sad because actually all of the research that I did into home birthing, like labours are shorter, less intervention, and just a more positive experience. So yeah, I have to say, like, especially for the last 3 months, like mindset was something that was really, really important for me to be practicing. I was using the doula deck. If you guys have been following me for a while, like I've been banging on about this doula deck since the start. My friend Vanessa got it for me and it was literally the best present. I used it the whole way through my pregnancy. And it was just amazing to set me up mentally to be like prepared, and also just to instill like positivity and kind of remind you of affirmations to repeat in your head. Like every single time I got in the bath, I was like visualizing my baby coming down the birth canal. Because I really, really, really wanted to give birth vaginally with like no intervention and no pain relief. And that's just personal preference. Like I literally I don't think you win any medals by not having pain relief, because I also respect people that equally have their own birth story and their own wants and their own needs for their birth. But it's just what I personally wanted. So yeah, mindset was like a huge thing. So I'm actually going to put the link of the doula deck below because I found it so helpful, and like you can start in your first trimester and it's just something that you should, I don't know, like I just found it really empowering and really helpful, especially if you're feeling nervous or apprehensive. So I'll put that link in the little description box below. Okay, let's start. Let's kickstart. Let's jump right in to birth story. Wait, I did a time lapse thing. Where is it? It was so funny. I did it like timestamp by timestamp. Sorry. By the way, for those of you who are wondering where Jude is, he is right here. He's fast asleep. Let's see for how long. Okay, so let's kickstart with labour. I had to like go through this with Mark because I was like, I don't remember the time. The time just flew. That's one thing I will say. You know when people say, oh, I was in labour for like 14 hours and you're like, oh my God, that seems like an eternity. I have to say the time just flew. Like, bearing in mind, like, wasn't on my phone, obviously, and like you're not distracted by anything. It just went like that. So yeah. Okay, so my labour started at 6:30 a.m. on Friday, the 23rd of June. I had like a period pain, type pain, which woke me up. And then I was like, oh, I need the toilet. So I got up out of bed and I like wet myself, which was obviously my water's breaking. But because I needed the toilet, I was like, I don't know if I've just wet myself or if my waters have actually broken. So I went to the toilet. I had diarrhea. I know TMI, but still. And then I asked Mark, who is coming up the stairs now. I asked Mark, I was like, I feel like my waters may have just broken, or I might have just wet myself. You thought I just wet myself? Why don't you just pop your head in and not say anything?
Give it noisy.
So he was like, oh, you've probably just wet yourself, like you're heavily pregnant, like go back to sleep. So he like rolled over, went back to sleep. instinctually was like, no, I feel like my waters have just broken. And then I called my doula and I was like, I feel like my waters may have broken. I have like water on the floor. Mark nearly slipped over in it. And yeah, she was like, I would say you're going into labour, but she was like, don't panic. She was like, I feel like you've probably got some time on your hands, like definitely try and eat something. So 7:30 a.m. I then came downstairs, I made myself a cup of tea, I was bouncing on my ball, and yeah, made myself a cup of tea, and I was just kind of reading through my doula deck. So there's a section in the doula deck that's called birth, and it's just all these affirmations about like giving birth and kind of saying things to yourself like, my baby knows what it's doing, my body knows what it's doing, I relinquish all control, you know, my baby is the perfect size for my body, all this kind of stuff. So yeah, and also I was saying things like each contraction is bringing me closer to meeting like my baby boy, like, and all these different things. So yeah, I was like trying to be really mindful and kind of set the intention for the start of labour to be like really positive. So I started reading those about 7:30. 8:30 a.m. So it's only been 2 hours, right, of contractions. I went to the lounge and things were like heating up. Like I felt like, wow, like these are really intense. And that was initially when I was thinking, if I'm still in early labour right now, which I probably am 2 hours in, this pain is like a lot. And I was having, at 8:30, I was having 3 contractions lasting a minute long, under 10 minutes. So then I think Mark then called M, or maybe I called M, but then I couldn't talk through my contractions. And yeah, so Mark then spoke to M, was like, yeah, she's having like 3 contractions under 10 minutes, and they're lasting a minute long. When I say my body just took over, I was like mooing like a cow. I was like, like I was not on this planet. But I think it was Sam Fairs who told me like she was mooing, and at the time I was like, that didn't really make sense. But as soon as I went into labour, it completely made sense. Like the like low vibration of like the moo was helping me get through the contractions, because in my head I was like, right, if I do 2 long moos on my exhale, so like really deep exhale through the nose and then like exhaling through my mouth, but like mooing like a low sound, 2 long ones of those, and then that was the contraction over. So it was really helping me, and I was like bouncing my ball, mooing, and then that was when I got the TENS machine out. So I kind of put that on my back, and I was using that to kind of help me through the contractions. But in my head, I really was kind of confused, because I'd always heard of people, especially in their first pregnancies, for them being in early labour for like a day, 2 days, nothing happening, and it always just taking that little bit longer the first time round. So I was like, wow, I'm not coping with the pain very well at all. So yeah, this was 8:30, and then 9 a.m. Mark called the triage and was basically like, guys, I think, you know, she is having 3 contractions, 1 minute long, under 10 minutes. What do we do? And because I opted for home birth, they sent round a midwife to just come and check on me. And I had said, like, from the get-go, I really didn't want to be vaginally examined at all. I just wanted to be in my own space. I didn't want to be put off. I didn't want to have my legs spread. I didn't want, you know, someone coming into my space, and because I just knew it would put me off. And I also just did not. I feel like if someone had told me at that point, like, oh yeah, you know, you're only 4 centimeters dilated, so, you know, hold on in there. I think it just would have demoralized me, or if she'd have told me that I wasn't dilated at all, or, you know, I just think ignorance was bliss for me at that moment. I was just kind of really in tune with my body and just wanted to just carry on blissfully unaware of how far along I was like dilated, because I just wanted to focus on like the moment and just each contraction bit by bit, and just not, you know, overthink anything. So yeah, the midwife came round. I declined the vaginal examination. She then took my blood pressure, and she had a listen to baby, and she also took a urine sample. So yeah, this is where things like kind of didn't exactly go according to plan. So my blood pressure was very high, and considering I have quite low blood pressure anyway, that was something that she was a bit concerned about. I then did a urine test, and I had protein in my urine. So again, she was kind of like, you're showing signs of preeclampsia. I can't do a blood test and test you here, so you're going to have to go into hospital if you want to get checked. And I still kind of was like, I really want to stay at home. And like, I was so comfortable. I like had my peanut ball. I felt like I'd had everything set up for the home birth. But obviously that she then listened to the baby. She had a little listen into baby. And she said that his heart rate was going very, very high and then coming very, very low. And I don't really know the technical term for that. But she just said, she was like, look, I would just go into hospital, have your blood test. If you don't have preeclampsia, you can come back home because still you're very low risk. So I was like, okay, fine. Let's do that. Breathing my way through it, moving my way through it. I was like, right, let's do that. Let's get planning. But obviously at that point, bearing in mind we're only at 9 a.m, Mark was like, oh my God, like I need to plan to go into hospital. He didn't even know where the hospital bag was, the poor thing. Like he didn't even know what was in it. He didn't even know what to bring, which is why it was so helpful that Em was there, which was our doula, who I cannot recommend enough. I have to say, like, if you are someone, do you know what? Not even if someone that you want extra support, I just feel like everyone should have a doula. They are so helpful. They're so like, it's almost like they're so impactful, but without knowing that they're there. They're like an invisible fairy godmother, because it's not as if like Em was in my face like, hey, how are you? How are you doing? Like she's not in your face at all. It's almost like they just make everything really seamless. They are supporting your birth partner, and also they are trying to keep you on track to your birth plan as much as possible. So at that point when Mark's obviously having a flap, running around the house thinking, what the fuck? Where is the baby car seat? Where is this? What do I need? So it was really nice for Mark to have Em there to just kind of support him, be like, right, let's do a Waitrose shop. Right, there's a hospital bag. Let's blow up the pool now, just in case when she comes home, she's like ready to give birth. Let's blow up the pool now. Let's get that room sorted. Let's put all the dust sheets up. Let's put all this stuff. Let's put that. This is at 11 a.m. This was when the midwife turned up. So Mark called the triage at 9. The midwife arrived at 11 a.m. And said that I needed to go to hospital. So at 12:30 p.m, we went to hospital. We went to triage where they took blood, and they were like, you'll probably have to wait like 50 minutes for your results. I was pretty much like on a different planet at this point. Again, they wanted to vaginally examine me. I politely declined. Or I'm pretty sure actually Em spoke on my behalf and was like, she doesn't want to be vaginally examined. So I didn't even have to have that conversation, which was great. And yeah, we were kind of in like a private room in triage at this point, waiting for the blood results. And then I think it must have been like an hour had gone by. We hadn't got the blood results back, but like the pain was like ramping up. Like that TENS machine was not helping, and I literally couldn't walk. Like I couldn't move. I was in serious pain. I remember being like, I need some help. Like, I need help. I was like, something is happening. I was like, I promise something is happening. And essentially, like, my body was involuntary pushing at this point. And the midwife who was with me at the time, she was like, is that your body, like, involuntary pushing? I was like, yes. I was like, I feel like this baby's coming. And all I could hear, and like, this is so sweet, and this is so, like, harsh for me to say, but, like, I'd said to Mark, so... like he was under strict instructions. I was like, baby, I want a home birth. So like, you have to fight for me. You have to fight my corner. Okay. You have to advocate for me, because I'm not going to want to have these conversations when I'm in hospital. And so I could hear him in the background, like talking to someone. My eyes were closed the whole time, by the way, throughout my whole experience. Like my eyes were closed. I was in my body in a different place. And I just remember, like, I think I was going through a contraction, and then I could hear Mark being like, you know, I really think we should go home. This is what you wanted. You wanted to have a home birth, love. Like, I really think we should just hop in the car. There's still time. Like, I've got you. And I just remember, like, coming out of the contraction, like, opening my eyes and being like, if you fucking mention home birth one more time, like, I'm going to fucking scream. I don't have time to go home. Like, shut up. Don't say it again. And that was, like, the only time that I actually kind of was, like, actually annoyed at Mark, because I just knew that like the birth was imminent at that point. I just knew I wasn't going to have time to go home. Like I could feel it in my body. Like my body was like contracting. I could just feel things were like moving very quickly. And poor Mark, he really got the brunt of it because also like he forgot sweets, which is like rookie error. I'm sorry, but if you're a birth partner watching this, like you need to bring jelly babies. Like Mark brought Oreos, like to dry my mouth out even further. Like no, thank you. To be fair, he also brought raspberries and put honey in the middle, so that was really nice. And then he also had like fresh mango, fresh strawberries. I loved having the fresh fruit. Like throughout the day because I basically didn't have time to eat anything in the morning, which is what Em told me to do. She was like, make sure you eat something whilst you have an appetite. I just could not eat anything because things were progressing so quickly. I just completely forgot. Okay, so yeah, so 1:30 p.m. my body starts involuntary pushing. So basically the midwives were like, it's happening. Like something, it's yeah, we're in full swing. And I didn't actually realise, but Em told me the next day that they were really pushing that I went to the labour ward, so there's two different kind of places you can go when you're about to give birth, labour ward or birth centre. For those of you that don't know the difference, birth centre is basically you can have gas and air and that's it. And you know that you've got your birthing pools, and it's basically for anyone that's low risk and that doesn't want, you know, an epidural or spinal block, anything like that, not having a C-section, etc. And then you've got your labour ward, which is where everything epidural, everything medical, anything like pain relief, all happens there. And obviously that's where like a lot of the consultants are. So they will be the ones that are administering all of that good stuff. So yeah, they were kind of saying that I had to go to the labour ward because my blood pressure was high and blah, 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 and all of this. And, you know, Em was amazing in that instance and just really advocated for me because she knew that I really didn't want to be on the labour ward. More because I just think, for me, in that moment, if someone had offered me an epidural, I probably would have taken it. But in the moment I wasn't thinking that I needed pain relief. I was like just breathing through it and my body, like I was coping with it absolutely fine. But I think when you're in that state, you feel vulnerable, you're in pain. I feel like if someone like said anything about like, oh, do you want an emergency C-section, I probably would be like, yeah, sure. Because obviously like you're trying to cope with like the pain and whatever. So yeah, I really was quite adamant about not going to the labour ward, and Em knew that. So you know, she's just said no, she needs to go to the birth centre. Like she's low risk still, like she doesn't have preeclampsia, and so she needs to go to the birth centre. I didn't even realise she had this conversation, to be honest. She only told me the next day. So we made our way down to the birth centre. I remember being in like a wheelchair, and honestly, people must have thought I was actually crazy. Like I'm looking back, I was kind of like I'm pretty sure I was like half naked at this point. And yeah, so headed to the birth centre. I remember like, because you have to empty your bladder quite regularly, because I think it can obstruct the baby coming down the birth canal. So yeah, we headed down to the birth centre at what time? 1:30. I then was kind of still having like quite intense contractions. I then have like time stamped of 4:30. I was like so hot because what I didn't realise is that everything's got to be kind of like 37 degrees because of the baby. When the baby comes out, it needs to be the same temperature. So I was planning on giving birth in the pool, and obviously I don't know if you guys remember the 23rd of June, but it was fucking sweltering. It was so hot. I was sweating from everywhere, like my face, my back, everywhere. Like I was hot. Like anyone who even wasn't in labour would be sweating. So we got to the birth centre, and I remember them being like, you know, you can get in the pool. That pool was like a jacuzzi. Oh my gosh, it was so hot. If you're giving birth in summer, in the next few weeks, and it's going to be a hot day, and it might be a hot day, please bring a fan to the hospital. Mark actually brought our Dyson fan, and I think that may have saved me. it was so hot. So something to definitely bear in mind, please bring a handheld fan, or even better, an industrial strength fan. So I was labouring at that point for like 3 hours. And I'm pretty sure I went into like active labour at 3:30. Yeah, it was 3:30. At 4:30 I had a cold shower. Like, Mark dragged me into the shower. I couldn't move, like, through these contractions. Like, I could not move. Like, Mark was literally dragging me, like, basically butt naked into the shower, because I needed to cool me down. Mark actually said, he was like, you weren't even complaining about the pain, you were complaining that you were so hot. Like, that was like the thing you kept repeating, like, I'm so hot, I'm so hot, I'm so hot. So that just gives you some context of, like, I feel like the pain, it's obviously a lot, but I was more fussed about being too hot and sweaty. Okay, so at 4:30 p.m. we had another midwife join. So my midwives were a lovely woman called Carmen, who was so amazing and supportive and kind. And I just remember her being like, you know, listen to your body, you know, you can do like whatever position you want and you feel comfortable, like, we're here to support you. Like, she was just so amazing. And yeah, so I'd had her kind of from the get-go as soon as I got into hospital. And then we had this amazing midwife called Aggie, who I think Jude's head was kind of like a little bit wonky, so we hadn't landed like directly straight onto the cervix. I could be saying this completely wrong. So like, I'm pretty sure he was a tiny bit at a slant, and Aggie had experience. I think she was also like some sort of like physio or something like that, because she was getting me in, like, she was great. Her approach was like, right, we're getting into this position, and she had me in this like really weird position. I'm going to try and insert the picture here, where like she had like a towel wrapped around her waist, and then she got me to grab like the other end of the like the two ends of the towel. My feet were underneath her like legs on the stool. I was sat on a birthing stool, by the way, so I was like angled back, Mark was behind me, and I was like squeezing on this towel, and I was there for maybe like an hour pushing, and that was great. And by that point, so at 4:30, she actually was like, you're not using gas and air, like, you need to just focus and you need to push. And you're like, I think the gas and air I found very distracting, and I actually haven't mentioned that, because that was one of the main questions, was did I have any pain relief. So I started using gas and air when I left triage, because when my body was involuntary pushing, that was when like things really started to like ramp up. Hi. That was when things really started to ramp up, and I felt like I needed like to take the edge off. So it was really helping to take the edge off when I'd left triage. However, when it came down to actually pushing, I felt like I was too busy trying to suck in as much gas and air as I could possibly fit in my lungs, that I wasn't really focusing on the actual pushing element. Hi, darling. I'm just talking about you. Yeah, so I was kind of like not focusing on the actual like pushing element. I was more fixated on like, let me just try and ram as much gas and air down my throat as I can humanely. Was it? Oh, yay. Oh, beautiful. So where was I? Okay, yeah, so she took the gas and air off me. She was like, right, you can do this, like, you've got this, like, just, you need to focus. So I was like looking at her deadpan in the eye, and I just remember her being like, you can do this. And it was kind of like a film, like I felt like The Rock was like giving me like a pep talk or something. So yeah, we scrapped the gas and air, which I won't lie, I was like, is she serious? And yeah, I was just kind of like pushing, and like at that point I wasn't like making any noise. I was just pushing like as if I was doing a poo for the last like for then an hour. So I was on the birthing stool for like an hour, and then I just really had this urge to like stand up. So I was literally standing up. I had my arms on the birthing pool, and I was pushing like with one foot up, like on a step, like proper cowboy style. And then yeah, I pushed I think for an hour, and then he was there. So yeah, so 4:30 I hopped in the shower, and then at 5 I was like on this little mini toilet seat. Aggie took away the gas and air. I made some notes obviously because I couldn't remember much. And And then, yeah, 5 o'clock, 5:30ish, I stood up to push and I was leaning on the birth pool. And then at 5:50, my mum arrived, which was really nice, actually. So she came in for like the last like half an hour of the birth, which was actually really, really special. And then at 6:30, Jude arrived. So literally 12 hours on the dot. He was so punctual. And then he arrived, he just flew out. But one thing that I just found astonishing and something that I learned actually during birth, which may shock you because I feel like women don't know this, because I've literally told so many people since and they're like, no, you're joking. And even people that have given birth like don't know this about what happens to your vagina and cervix like during labor. So like when I was sat on the little toilet seat thing with my feet underneath Aggie's like legs, they had like a little mirror on the floor, and I remember catching a glimpse of this mirror, right, which was obviously angling up my food. Oh, big yawn. Oh, are you hungry again? Or are you just having a little moan? Oh, just a little moan, that's nice. So I caught a glimpse of the little mirror, right? My vagina was completely closed, okay? So bearing in mind this was at 4:30 p.m, okay? And they told me that I was in like advanced labour and that I was like really close to the end. Like, I was like, what? In my head I was thinking, those lying bastards, like they have told me that I'm in advanced labour. They have told me that I'm close to the end, and I'm not close to the end at all. And little did I know, because I asked my midwife friend after actually, basically your cervix is the thing that dilates. Your vagina stays completely closed all the way like to the end. Welcome to that, yes. Your vagina stays completely closed, like completely closed the whole way through. Like I was thinking that when you're in like advanced labour, when you're 10 centimetres dilated, I just thought you'd be able to see a baby in there. I thought you'd just be able to see all of your organs, to be honest. Like at least like be able to see the head like travelling down. No, sir, that is not how it works. Like your vagina's closed completely until they come out. So I remember like Mark was saying like my vagina was like that much open, like the contraction before. So when you contract, that's when it opens a tiny bit and closes, and like it kind of bulges a little bit. But like the contraction before Jude literally flew out, my vagina was open that much, like on the last contraction. So like, how mad is that? Like, and in my head I'm thinking like, no wonder I tore, because the next contraction you just flew out. And most people, it's like the head and then the shoulders and then the like he just flew out of nowhere. I think because I was pushing so hard, which to be fair, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but obviously I then tore pretty badly. So yeah, I had a 1st degree tear, had 12 stitches, which was really fun. I literally tore like from the front to the back, and then I had a stitch like in between my vag and my bum. So that was really I'm now actually gonna just flip to the questions, but essentially that was my birth story. I did try and timestamp it, but I know that I've kind of like blabbed in between, so sorry if it wasn't very clear. But I also had like you guys asked me like some questions, so I'm gonna answer those and like just do like the most. So what was the hardest moment of your experience? There was like a point where I think like I didn't have the gas and air, and he was obviously really, I mean, he was basically like about to pop out, and I just remember being like, oh, I can't do it. And apparently like that's like a real, like it's called the, is it called like the transition or something? There was like one moment where I was like, I can't. I can't. And yeah, it was just amazing because, you know, my mum was like, you can do it, you are doing it. And then like Mark was in my other ear, like, you've got this. And like it was just so amazing to have like that support, especially so close to the end, because I felt like I kind of was dealing with it like relatively okay up until that point. So yeah, that was definitely the hardest moment. And like I think every single woman goes through that point of where they're like, oh my god, like I just don't know how much longer I can push for. But you can, and you do, and I've never had so much more respect like for my body than I do right now, just for like going through all of that. So yeah, that was definitely the hardest moment. How long was your labour? So yeah, my labour was 6:30 to 6:30, literally to a T, so like 12 hours. And yeah, they were saying like that your next one will probably be even quicker. So yeah, I feel like I had a really positive experience. Obviously I understand like so many people have like a really long like early labour, or like, yeah, they're in early labour for like a long time, so it's not as enjoyable and it's not as easy to like remain calm and whatever. So I understand that like my story and like my birth situation might not, people might not relate to it as much, but yeah, I felt really lucky that I wasn't in labour for ages, because I always hear that people are like, I was in labour for like 36 hours. I'm like, ooh. So yeah, mine was 12 hours. Pain relief did you have? I just did gas and air, and then for the last couple of hours, just oxygen. Yeah, just oxygen and oxytocin. Breastfeeding, are you using formula or are you combine feeding? So literally from the get-go, we have we've been doing bottle and boob. I think from day 3 or 4, whenever my milk came in, we've been doing bottle and breast with all breast milk. And he loves the bottle and he loves the boob as well. I definitely haven't got the breastfeeding down to a T. It still actually hurts, and I know that it shouldn't hurt. So I'm actually seeing a lactation consultant soon. But yeah, breastfeeding is a weird one, because I was expecting to like really enjoy it, and I haven't enjoyed it as much as I thought I would. But I think it's probably because it's painful. And I know that it's definitely a technique thing, because sometimes it's really painful and sometimes it's not, and I can't really tell what's... Yes, you are. Should we try and put you back in here and see if you're settled? We'll see if that works. Worst thing and best thing about the birth. Obviously, the best thing is when they come out. Like, I cannot describe to you. I mean, to be honest, I look back on that day so fondly, even with the contractions, even with the tearing. Like, obviously, I didn't feel the tear at the time. I was, like, blissfully unaware. But like the best thing is just meeting your baby for the first time. Like, I cannot tell you like how much joy and like how much my heart was so... I just couldn't have done it without Mark. Like, he was so amazing the whole day and just incredible. He was like, that is the only time I would ever let you pull my hair. He was like, I am trying to save my hair through my old age. And he was like, that is the only one time which I would allow you to pull my hair. So yeah, that was definitely the best thing, is just like looking back, and just there was just so much love, so much support, and it was just such a positive day. The worst thing I'd say is like I can't even pinpoint a worst thing about birth. Like, obviously it is painful, but I feel like I was so mentally prepared for it. I knew it was going to be painful. I knew it was going to be hard. I told myself it was going to be really hard, so I feel like I was prepared mentally for that. But I think the hardest thing for me was like the postnatal stuff, like the post-recovery. Like, I just felt like a shell of a human, but it was more because of the stitches. Obviously, like every single time I went for a wee, every single time I was like showering, it was just so unbelievably painful. Like, my stitches were so like, they were almost like so superficial that they were like, every single time I was sat on my like crop, everywhere, I couldn't sit down like this. Every single time I was sat, I had to be like angled backwards, and it was just so painful. And obviously you're bleeding as well. Like, my boobs were in agony, my nipples were so sore. I was obviously trying to like feed him some colostrum, and like, I didn't realize how hard babies' gums are. So yeah, I would definitely invest in some nipple cream. If you're about to give birth, like, please get some nipple cream. The best one is what's it called? It's like lanolin. Again, I'll put some links below to some like my must-have items, because I didn't have any at the time. I had some nipple cream, but it was really thin and it was almost like a lip balm. Whereas you need something really thick, really hydrating. So I will put some links below. So yeah, that was best and worst thing about birth. What's the first thing you said when he was born? I couldn't tell you. I just remember like crying, like with happiness. I was like looking at Mark and like looking at Jude and just being like, oh my God, I'm like the luckiest person in the world. Okay, next thing. Next question. most surprising thing you've learned after doing all the research. Most amazing thing, well, the most surprising thing is that your vagina stays fucking closed the whole time. I had no idea. So many people still don't know. When did that happen? Were you just sick on me just then? I didn't even notice. The most surprising thing was literally like the whole thing about you basically just, it's your cervix that's dilating. It's nothing to do with your vagina. But obviously that makes so much sense why people tear. So yeah. Want to be sick on my other shoulder? Will that make you feel better? Would it? Yeah? No? Oh no, it won't. Okay, let's try it anyway. I think he's trying to eat me. Was birth what you expected? Was it better or harder? I guess the thing for me is that like I know that every woman like is so amazing for giving birth, whether that's like abdominally or whether that's vaginally. I just feel like women are amazing. Like, and I just wish that more women believed in themselves and believed in their own body and like just did the research, because I do feel like you have to be well informed. You have to know what your birth choices are. You have to know what your birth plan is. And like, obviously you can't plan what's going to happen and like things won't go according to plan, but having preferences and like being able to advocate for yourself and like, or having people on the day that are going to advocate for you, is really important, just so that like you don't come away from the birth experience being like, oh, that isn't what I wanted, or like, you know, that wasn't what that wasn't something that I would have agreed to if I was in the right frame of mind. So I would just, my advice would be to anyone who's about to have a baby is just like have a think about all of the situations that might happen and like how that looks like for you. And if say you want a say if you do want an epidural, like do you want to be vaginally examined and all these X, Y and Z? Like a lot of women don't know that you have these choices, so it's really, really important to do your research, because it's such a huge thing. And I really think that if like I really think that it has a massive thing to do with if people have a really negative birth, then like how on earth are they supposed to cope like afterwards for that first week? It's so hard on the best, like for the best of people. And like if you have like a really traumatic birth, then like how are you supposed to function in the first week? Yeah. But yeah, I just think women should believe in themselves more, because we are amazing. And let's face it, like it's such an incredible thing to give birth, whether it's vaginally or like abdominally, like I said. And like we should just give ourselves a bit more credit. And also give ourselves the best chances of having like personalised care. So knowing what you want in what situation is really important. Was there any part of labour birth that you'd change? Well, like obviously I would have liked to have given birth at home, and I think for my next baby I definitely will give birth at home, especially because my labour was so short. Like I would, my hair is in the stick. I'd really like to be able to birth at home. But you know, we'll see what happens. Like if it's shown me anything, it's that you can't plan what's going to happen. But do you know what? I'm really happy with, you know, my birth. I'm happy with who was there on the day. I'm so happy with how it ended up. Like even though it wasn't what I initially had in my mind of having a home birth, I still had such a positive experience. The midwives were incredible and super supportive, and obviously Mark was, I mean, it just made me fall in love with him even more, which I didn't even know was possible. And then also we had, sorry, look at him. And then also we had Em, obviously, like our doula, and she was incredible as well. She like just helped make the whole situation just so much smoother. Tips to bring on labour. So I will say that I actually was drinking like 2 cups of raspberry leaf tea every day because I really wanted to not go over. And I was adamant I was never going to get in Jude, because it's like increases your chances of intervention, which is something that I really didn't want. So I was having raspberry leaf tea, and then I was also bouncing on my peanut butter. Oh, darling. Right, guys, I think I'm going to have to leave you. I need to... Is that poo? No. I need to feed this man. He's woken up very hungry. But yeah, thank you so much for listening to my birth story. And, you know, everything that I've said is just off personal experience. You should obviously go and speak to like a professional if you have any like questions about your own personal situations. So yeah, sending you so much love, and thank you so much for all your support. And I'm gonna go change this top and breastfeed. So yeah, sending lots of love, and thank you for